Hi, I'm Bob Campbell with Alliance Solutions Group, and I'd like to share with you some of the best practices for essential retail and grocery stores in stopping the spread of coronavirus. Having trained over 15,000 first responders for hazardous material incidents and thousands of medical workers on infectious disease control measures, as well as industrial workplaces on how to control a variety of hazards, our company has compiled a top 10 list of control measures to help stop the spread. Now, as an industrial hygienist, we often refer to controlling hazards using something called the hierarchy of controls. It starts with elimination being the highest and the most effective means of eliminating a hazard, followed by substitution of the hazard, if that were possible here. I'm sure we'd figure out a way to do it. Engineering controls are next, utilizing barriers or ventilation systems, structures, things like that. Then comes administrative controls. Administrative controls consist of things like work practices, policies, and procedures. And then finally, the last but not, I guess last and least here is the personal protective equipment, things like gloves and masks. And these are last because there's a lot of variety in how effective training is that people can follow and how well they follow the procedures of putting on and taking off various types of protective equipment, their knowledge on changing things out. How often do you change out the gloves or a mask, for instance, or clean it? So there's a lot of variability in that, and that's why that is last. But the first and foremost is elimination. That's how we would want to put a lot of emphasis on preventing the spread of the virus into a living organism as well as in the environment itself. So let me share our top 10 best practices for stopping the spread in essential retail and grocery stores. First, I would recommend eliminating the virus by wiping down touch surfaces such as shopping carts, credit card readers, door handles, any surface that someone can touch is a potential place for cross-contamination or allowing the spread to occur. That's why we've seen the elimination of many eat-in dining facilities in some restaurants and supermarkets. If a store is using those touchscreen point of sales terminals, it would be great to disinfect those and wipe those down in between each customer visit, because every time they touch that screen, there's a potential for cross-contamination. So wiping, that can eliminate the virus in the environment that as it lives on surfaces. And a lot of recent studies are showing that the virus can survive up to about a week on certain types of surfaces. Second is I would recommend hand sanitizer, mandatory usage of it at the entrance and the exit of any store. People inevitably are going to come into a store and they're going to touch things. They're going to pick up products. They're going to read the label. They're going to see what the ingredients are. Then they might not want that product and put it back down. Right there was a potential to actually contaminate a product and spread the virus to someone else. And so you can't possibly wipe down every single product after every person touches it. But one measure that I think would be very effective is ensuring that everybody coming into your store utilizes hand sanitizer before they come in, so that if they had something on their hand, it would minimize the effect. Now, certainly it doesn't stop them from touching their face while they're in the store, but it's one more measure. And then as they leave the store, because if they have touched things and picked things up and they were cross-contaminated with the virus, that's a means of helping to stop the spread as they leave the store and move on to something else. So entrance and exit. It's practice that I use in my business. We have the hand sanitizer at the entrance, so before I come in and leave each day, I'm utilizing hand sanitizer. The third is similar to that, and this is an administrative policy, but having a no-touch policy. If you touch it, you're buying it. So if you're picking up a product in a store, you're putting it in your grocery cart, and you're going to be buying it, not putting it back on the shelf. And I know that could be a bit of a challenge. It may require workers to make sure that there are products that are visible. You can see the ingredients, you can see the front of the packaging, and not ideal. However, that is one means in which we can stop the cross-contamination, is having a no-touch policy in the stores. Fourth, putting a barrier between the employees and the patrons of the store. And I've seen this at several supermarkets where they've put up a plexiglass barrier along the checkout line where they're helping bag the groceries and ring up the sale. And that certainly protects the workers, and it protects the patrons from potential spread from the workers as well. So that's a great practice. And of course, those little laser readers can be used through those plexiglass to look at your discount cards or whatever it is that needs to be scanned. Fifth is no contact transactions, and these are becoming more popular. Whether it's scanning the cards through the plexiglass window or running your own credit card, picking up your own receipt. If you're using cash, placing cash on the counter and not actually handing it to a person and having them pick it up. Using top-bottom handoffs. I've noticed this at Starbucks at the drive-thru where they will hold the bottom of the cup and let you grasp the top of the cup. It's a great practice so that you don't come into contact physically with the person. And so anything you can do to minimize the actual contact or eliminate the contact between the patron and the workers would be a good thing. Number 6, I'm not a big fan of utilizing gloves because it gives, I think, a false sense of security, and creates a greater opportunity, I think, for cross-contamination. The way some people use gloves, they have a sense that they're secure, but then they might touch their face with the glove on or touch other things. They think, oh, the glove's protecting me, I'm fine. But it's not about necessarily protecting the person wearing the gloves. It's about stopping the spread of the contamination. And so I would proceed with caution with this. However, if an employer wants to require their employees to wear gloves, they should provide proper training to make sure they understand that it's not so much about protecting themselves, although that they can certainly benefit from that, but it's about stopping the spread of the contamination. So whatever they touch, realize that there's a potential to continue that spread. And so washing the gloves may be a technique, changing the gloves may be another technique that may be utilized. Next, grocery store workers are coming into contact with large populations typically. And so from a respiratory protection standpoint for those workers, and N95 obviously is the choice. Those are in short supply right now, but that would be appropriate for them to prevent their exposure. It also does some things to prevent if they were ill and they were potentially spreading the disease to someone else, that could help. The fabric and cloth masks that are becoming ubiquitous may help prevent the worker from spreading it. They may help a patron from spreading it, but they don't do a whole lot in the way of protecting a person from being exposed. Certainly, it's probably better than nothing. However, from a personal protective standpoint, maybe not the best. But from a worker standpoint, having an N95 or equivalent type of respiratory protection is a good thing. If you are going to require, whether it's a cloth mask or an N95 of an employee, it's important to have a policy in place, a procedure for how they're going to wear it, how often do they change it, how often they throw it away, do they disinfect it, the training. I think the training is critical in the area of limitations and understanding what is the limitation of that cloth mask. It's not going to protect you to 95% of the virus transmission like an N95 will. However, maybe it provides 25%. But making sure that people are aware of that so that they're not relying on something with a false sense of security. 8th is hand washing for all employees. Now, typically, this is standard practice in a lot of retail and particularly food handling or grocery stores. However, it may need some reemphasis here, especially from a policy, a procedure, defining what that hand washing is like, making sure they go through the proper training, maybe using some training aids that go with it. So that could certainly be helpful for stopping the spread. Next is physical distancing. I'm sure you're seeing a variety of different types of physical distancing. So one type is in the lines, having a queue or a certain place to stand so that people are separated by at least 6 feet while they're standing in line to enter the store, having only so many people in the store at a given time. And then movement throughout the store, we're seeing a lot more one-way lanes down different aisles, so that you don't have people coming into direct contact with each other, but rather following each other through the store and can keep pace with each other and not come into close contact. And last, number 10 would be temperature checks for employees pre and post shift. So before they start their shift, checking temperature. A fever is a leading indicator for the coronavirus. It leads by about 2 to 3 days before hospitalization occurs. And so, and of course, people are infectious before they get hospitalized and start seeing the signs and symptoms, but it certainly is it would be a good policy, a good work practice to check temperatures before and after shifts. So again, if you're a patron going to one of these grocery stores or central retail, you might use this top 10 list as a way to evaluate which store you might go to, and if you want to try a different store that might have better practices in place. And if you're an employer, if you're an owner of a grocery store or essential retail, you might use this list to implement some of these best practices to stop the spread from your store among your employees, keep your workforce healthy and safe, as well as those that patron your store. Again, my name is Bob Campbell with Alliance Solutions Group, and I appreciate you listening to this short message.